Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of School Life Ready Talks. Here, where we discuss several topics as it pertains to child development, raising children with disabilities, engaging children in the public school systems. So, here at School Life Ready, we are dedicated to empowering parents, educators, and caregivers with the knowledge and tools that's needed to support children with learning challenges and developmental disabilities. Normally, I would have my co-host Jen, but today Jen is under the weather and she's not able to join us. So I need for everyone to send Jen your well wishes, and we hope that she feels better so she can definitely be with us next week. So again, welcome everyone. Make sure that you go to our YouTube channel at SLR Insights. That's S for school, L for life, R for ready, Insights. SLR Insights, that's our YouTube channel. Make sure you go, you like and subscribe so that we can continue to provide you with all this wonderful information. So tonight we will be having another parent join us to discuss our topic of should we tell our children about their disabilities. So last week on the show, I don't know if y'all remember, I explained that I had a parent who told me not to inform her child that her child has a disability. And I always try to respect my parents' decisions. And so I made sure that I did nothing to inform the child of their disabilities. However, in my years of practice and in research, I am of the professional opinion that we should tell our children what's going on with them and not to keep it in the dark. So I promised that this week we were going to be discussing that. So unfortunately, I don't have Jen with me tonight. I have another parent who will be joining us, and I'm really looking forward to hearing that parent's perspective as we delve into tonight's conversation. And while I was thinking about the whole aspect of should we tell our children about their disabilities, I started looking more into some research on what the literature says and what the professional literature says about what we do and how we as parents, educators, caregivers, and respected adults, how we should address this situation. So what I'm going to share with you all tonight is based on that perspective, but at the same time, I will be discussing it from a parent's rights perspective as well, because we have to respect people's culture, what they want for their children. We have to respect that, and I'm sure that everyone who's listening is understanding when you have a professional who believes one thing, and then we have a parent who's asking for something else. So we as professionals, we are kind of like caught in the middle of what's the right approach. So I'm going to go through the conversation, and then at the end of the night tonight, I will let you know where I came down on this decision and how I'm going to be moving forward. So make sure you guys stick around for that. So I am going to see if my parent is ready to join us for the conversation. So Ms. Kendra, are you ready to join us tonight, or do you need a few more minutes? I see you have entered onto the platform. So, okay. All right. So, what you can unmute if you don't want to be on camera, you can unmute and we can have a conversation. So, all right, guys. So, why does this even matter? Like, why are we having this conversation? And the reason I think it matters is that if I have one parent who is saying this to me, I trust there are many other parents who feel the same way. And so we want to bring light to the topic, because a lot of parents, they wrestle with, will this label and limit their child, right? And before I get further into this, I want to make a disclaimer that not because a child has a diagnosis means that they have a disability, because a disability is only in context of their environment, right? It's like, as I explained to you all before, that if you have a child who is in a swimming pool, or if you throw a child in a swimming pool and the child can swim, the child won't have a disability in that swimming pool. But if you put a child in the swimming pool and the child cannot swim, that's when the child has a disability. So a disability is really, really related to the environment. So not because a child has a diagnosis of something means that they have a disability. And then remember too, being that a disability is pertaining to the environment, in one environment, a kid might not have a disability, but yet you move them and you put them in another environment and they have a disability. For example, if you, I know back in the days when I was in Jamaica, there were times when and even here in the States, there are times when people will take the classroom outside and be having classes under a tree, right? And then typically we have classroom settings that have desks and chairs. A child who is learning in a classroom might have a disability learning in that classroom, because the classroom is structured, it has definitive spaces to sit, it has the way you have to sit. But if you take that child and you bring that child to sit outside on the grass and is able to lay down and just learn, the child might not have a disability in that situation. So don't get confused with a disability and a diagnosis, because they're different. So a disability is really about the context. So when I talk about, okay, should we tell their child about the disability, we're talking about a disability in the context of their environment, in the context of them being able to do the activities that they have to do throughout the school day. So a lot of times parents get diagnoses and then they begin to worry to say, okay, is this going to limit my child? If the child knows that they have a particular diagnosis, is that going to cause them to feel different or broken? Will they use it as an excuse to not get things done? Because this is a very example, that parent who told me not to tell their child about that they do have a name for their symptoms and this disability symptoms that they're experiencing within the specific environment, which is mostly school and sometimes at home. That parent's worry was that the child will use it as an excuse to not participate in things or not to get things done. So that's why that parent didn't want me to mention it, because she didn't want her child to use it as a crutch, be like, oh, I have a disability, I can't do this. But as we go through tonight, I'll help parents who do have that that concern. We'll help and work through that. Another thing is the parents might think they're too young, they might not understand it. It doesn't make sense I even mention it, because they're one, they might not have the cognitive ability, depending on the child, might not have the cognitive ability to understand their disability, or they're too young, they won't understand. So that's another thing that parents wrestle with. And the other thing is, some parents, they want to talk to their children about it, but they themselves as parents, one, don't understand it themselves and don't know what words to use. So tonight, I promise you guys, we're going to get through a lot of information on this topic tonight. So, my feeling is that we should tell children about their disabilities. I think Jen and I, we did an episode a few weeks back. I think it was early when we first started, so maybe week 3, where we did discuss how important it was for us to let children be aware of what they're feeling, and understanding their emotions, and understanding why some things are hard for them, because they might be looking at their friends, they might be looking at classmates, family members, and realizing, wait, I'm different. I'm not able to do the things that they're doing. And it's the sentiments and the literature is saying that self-understanding helps with self-confidence, right? Self-understanding equals self-confidence. So when children are more in tune with their abilities, they have more confidence, right? So children often sense they're different or they struggle, and so we want them to be able to understand what is going on. They also need to know that what they depending on what they're experiencing, is that other people before them and people who come after them will also experience these things, and that there's a name there's a name. So not to say there's a label, because label gives us negative connotation, but there is a name for what they are experiencing. It's something that's more common than they know, and that there is a name that they can identify with and say, oh, I have ADHD. Oh, I have autism. Oh, I have Down syndrome. And they can articulate it to other people who don't know them, or don't understand it. And they can say, I have whatever it is. I have a physical disability. I have a learning disability. They can articulate it. And that helps to take away the stigma of anything associated with these diagnoses, because it has a name, and it has a name because many people have these symptoms and experiences. so they can better relate to their environment and the people in their environment, because understanding themselves helps them to share with others their experience, right? And it helps to give them the self-confidence. So that is one argument for me for telling a child about their disability. And I must say that there have been several studies that show that children, especially children who have autism, who are able to verbalize it, and especially like in their teenage years, like kids who have autism and they understand their diagnosis, they are better able to describe it to others. And being able to describe what their diagnosis is or what their disability is also helps them to ask for what they need, right? So and this is very, very important for school age children, because when the kid knows what he needs and he's in school or she's in school, and they're away from, or they're in environments where they're away from people, like away from their parents or away from people who are very familiar with them, they're better able to advocate for themselves. They're better able to say, hey, I can't tolerate that loud noise right now. I'm just using that as an example. Like I cannot tolerate that loud noise right now. Can I be taken out of the environment? Or do you have some headphones that I can wear while I really want to be here? I don't want to leave. Can I get some headphones? Like, that's why it's important that we really, really tell our children and explain to them what they are going through so that they can help to advocate for themselves, to say what their needs are. Because what's going to happen is if they can't advocate for themselves, they're going to be experiencing more trauma than they really need to experience, especially if they are not with familiar people, right? And especially now that school is coming up and you might have your child going into a new class with a new teacher that don't know them, right? Because every school year the teacher changes. Very few times you have where the child is moving up the grade levels with the same teacher. But we have children now who are, the school year is coming up and we're starting over. They're going into a new setting altogether. Wouldn't it be good if your child is able to say, oh no, I can't sit by Miss Jones, don't put me next to the window, right? Or Miss Jones, can I be in the front of the class next to your table, right? Because over time, as these children learn more about themselves and they're able to identify what's going on with them, put a name and a description next to what they're going through, then they can better advocate. And when a child can better advocate, then you see less of those behaviors, those tantrum behaviors, or those eloping behaviors. Because at the end of the day, children are, all of us do it, human beings, we do this. We always go for where we are comfortable. And we always try to escape situations that are not comfortable for us. So if we are better able to help our children identify what they need due to their disability, that is one of the key components to improving independence and improving function. So again, my argument is let's tell our children, let's teach our children what they are experiencing so we can help them be better able to advocate for their needs. Miss Kendra, do you have anything to add to our conversation so far? Nothing to add, Miss Kendra? Okay. All right. So we'll keep going. So, yeah. Okay. Oh, are you muted? You can let me. I'm gonna add you. Okay.
Oh my.
Okay. Okay. So, what are
Can you
you
hear me?
thinking about those conversations in terms of just
Well,
making
no,
our
I agreed with everything. Can you hear me?
yes.
Okay, so I agree with everything that you said. So I am a parent of two kids, one with autism and one with ADHD. However, for my child with ADHD, I didn't want him to know because I didn't want him to feel like he was different or that something was wrong with him. But, unfortunately, when we were at the doctor's office, the pediatrician kind of basically told him. Um, but also, as you said, that sometimes they can use that. I just also felt like I didn't want him to use that as an excuse when he's in school or sports to be like, oh, well, I don't understand because I have ADHD or can't process things the way other kids can. But he's fine. I guess it was just more of me that felt like he doesn't need to know. But I listened to everything you said, and I agree with what you were saying. I guess it's to each its own, each parent chooses how they feel like they want their child to know or not.
And the thing is, and I think that's why the pediatrician didn't even. I don't think the pediatrician even asked you if you wanted
Well,
your child to know.
I literally wrote it on a sticky note and handed it to her and told her not to use those acronyms when we're talking about him, and she still did it. So, and I felt like she violated me because that was my right. I wasn't ready for him to know. And she took it upon herself to still do it and felt like, oh, he needed to know.
Well, and that's why what I want parents who are listening to understand that as the healthcare provider to the children, we believe that the children need to know. Like we truly believe the children need to know. And I wouldn't have violated you. I would have worked with you to get you to come around, because see, I think now, how many years later, now you have come around to more understanding as he has gotten older too, to tell him. So I wouldn't have dropped it in a bomb moment like how that pediatrician did it. But I think the pediatrician,
Right.
in her training, she knows that children should know. She knows the benefits, that it's more important for children to know. And then we're caught having to respect parents, because I wouldn't want any parent to feel like how you felt about that pediatrician in that moment, to feel that way about me. But at the same time, I have to work with
Right.
parents to let them understand it is important for your child to know what they're, because it's worse when a child is experiencing certain things and not understanding, like, and then starting to beat up on themselves instead of saying, oh, okay, this is difficult for me, but here are some strategies that I can use to help me be better at certain things, right? So
Mm-hmm.
so you are one of those parents who would have rather we don't say anything. And I would have taken a different approach than your pediatrician. I would have spoken to you and be like, okay, let's make a plan, because we have to eventually get him to understand what's going on with him, so he can better be able to, as I said before previously, better able to advocate for himself, as well as being able to understand that he's not broken. There's nothing really, there's nothing wrong with him. It's not even necessarily a disability, because as I said before, it sometimes it works. I'm pretty sure there are activities where the hypervigilance works. You know what I mean? So it's like certain things might be
Yeah.
hard if you have ADHD, but if you have ADHD, certain things are great. You know, you because you have ADHD, it certain things are easier for you. You
Mhm.
might be better able to keep up. You might be more socially engaged, right? You might be able to make friends and be more extroverted. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So there's strengths to everything. So not because a kid has a diagnosis of something doesn't mean that they are any less. And so another thing that I would
Right.
say another thing that I would say is the more we inform our children of their disabilities or their diagnoses, is that it really helps to reduce shame. Because I remember when autism was like nobody wanted to say their child was autistic, right? Um, and now after so many years and with the more increased prevalence of autism, we have more parents embracing it. I even see cases now where parents are like, my child has autism. And I'm like, was your child diagnosed with autism? No. No, but I know he has autism. You know, like it's just, they're like, okay, because now it is socially accepted. People are beginning to understand autism so much more. There's so much more research on it. The different levels of autism, as we all go across the different symptoms of the being on the spectrum, right? So the more we give name and accept these diagnoses, it really, really helps to reduce shame. More when kids can come out and say, I have ADHD, I have autism, I have a learning disability. It really, really takes away the stigma. And it also allows people to be, others on the outside, I should say, to be more accepting, right? Nobody's like now, like very rarely do you see a child not wanting to play with another child because they have a disability. And and that's a good thing about integration in schools, because the children who are in general ed now are getting to see all different types of disabilities. The physical disabilities are more pronounced. So they'll see children in a wheelchair and understand, okay, that child has a physical disability. Maybe they can't walk, or sometimes the child might be nonverbal. And the children who are in the regular classes, they are now being able to learn more and learn so much more about disabilities by our schools being integrated. Because remember, like in the 70s, 80s, like children with disabilities went to different schools. I remember when I was working in New York in the 90s, there was, and this, yeah, that was in the 90s. We had a school with the only kids that were in that school were kids with disabilities. Like there was nothing, no integration of regular ed and physical and special education. There was they were separate. So now with the advent of inclusion into classes, because we have a lot of classes that we call inclusion classes, we have collaborative classes wherein we have special ed and regular ed children in the same classroom learning the same materials. that has really, really helped to have other people learn about the disabilities, as well as help the children understand that yes, I am different in some respects, but I am no worse than these other kids in my class, because I am able to do a lot of the things in the class. It's just that I can't do everything based on, be it a physical disability or a cognitive disability, right? So another reason for us to tell our kids um, about their disability is that the research shows that children who understand their diagnoses tend to have better self-esteem, positive coping strategies, and lower anxiety. And we all know how anxiety, we even the kids who are in regular ed, like anxiety is very prevalent in our kids. Our kids are anxious. Just being in school for a lot of kids is really anxiety provoking. So yeah, that's that's another good reason, because we know that in the long run, right? So we have to sometimes look past the immediate sometimes and look down the road as to what we want the outcomes to be for our children, right? So in the moment you might think, all right, I'm not going to tell him because I don't want him to use it as a crutch, or I'm not going to tell him because I don't want him to feel like he's broken, or I'm not going to tell him because of the umpteen other reasons, you as a parent. But we have to look long term, long term. So, Miss Kendra, with do you feel like your child has a better understanding now at this moment with his or is it still the same where you still have not had a conversation?
It flies like in the house.
I can't hear you. All right, I can't hear you. I'm not hearing you. Um, oops, I'm trying to. Okay, I can't hear her. So yeah. So but then I do hear and understand parents who say, all right, I want them to know, but now is not the time. And I definitely, that I am more okay with that than I don't want them to know at all. I'm really, really more okay with, parents. Okay. Parents may fear the child will misunderstand the diagnosis, um, because they're young, right? Or especially in early childhood, using the terms like ADHD, autism, like if the child is really young, I would say maybe below 8, it can be real hard for them to really truly grasp the everything. So and also too, kids are hearing about different diagnoses and may not want to know, like they have it. So it's like you have to kind of know your child, because the kids too, because I had just 2 weeks ago in one of my sessions, I had a 10-year-old boy who does not have autism, and he was like, Dr. Cece, do I have autism? And I'm like, I don't think you have autism. And he says, so then why does everybody think I have autism? And that was a hard question for me in the moment, because I had to say, well, listen, autism is not a bad thing to have. You just don't have it. You might have something else, and another kid might have autism, but you don't have autism, and it's not a bad thing. So depending on the child, we don't want them to feel stigmatized by the label. So this is like a touchy area. Parents kind of know, go with how your child is. So there might be a case for waiting, depending on your child's outlook on things. There might be a case for waiting depending on your child's age. There might be a case for waiting if you're not sure. Like, if you do know you want to tell your child, but you're not sure, there is a case for waiting. I have no problems with you saying, you, as a parent, I do want my child to know about his or her diagnosis, but I'm going to wait. And definitely, I don't have a problem with that at all. But I will tell you that what the research recommends is that you are honest and develop, just as I was just saying, you are developmentally appropriate with your disclosure. So that's the key. You have to know your child, right? And what you want to do as well is you want to frame it around their strengths, not about what's hard for them, what's difficult for them, but frame it around their strengths and their supports that they can get for having this diagnosis. Like, you have this diagnosis, and because you have this diagnosis, we have things that can help you be even better at how you do whatever it is that you guys as parents and educators want the child to be better at doing, or to be more independent at doing, right? So we have to make sure that the child is emotionally ready before we disclose. And another thing is, if you have a child who is asking, that means that it's time for you to have the conversation, right? You don't want to be holding back, because you don't want your child to feel like you're not being fully open with them. So if your child is asking, by all means, it's time to have the conversation, especially if they're asking. If they're not asking, then that's when you have to make sure that they are developmentally appropriate and emotionally ready for the conversation. There's a book, and Jen, I know you might be listening. I miss you. Maybe next time we'll talk about the different books that help with having conversations with our kids. But there's a book by the author is Jennifer Elder, and the name of the book is Different Like Me. It's a book about autism, and it's a book that talks about individuals with autism as superheroes, right? So that book it discusses famous people who have autism, and it helps to empower a younger child who's be like, oh, this famous person has autism and they're able to do this and do this. Because the more that we see people doing things, the more people who are like us doing things, the more empowered we are. And that's why we always say that representation matters, because when you see somebody like yourself being able to accomplish things, then it also make you feel like, wow, I can do that as well, because I'm just like that person, or I'm similar to that person. So that's one of the books. That's Different Like Me by Jennifer Elder. um, there are different articles and that you can research online and see if it can help you to um, help your child be more cognizant of what's going on with them. Also, for parents who decide you don't want to tell your children, that's fine. It's not recommended. Um, you don't you deal with it in whatever way you feel you want to deal with it. And I would hope that your pediatricians and therapists, they will honor your request if you do make that to them. But we as professionals would recommend that you only put it off, not necessarily don't ever do it, right? So it's either you're going to put it off and eventually have the conversation with your kid, or you're going to go ahead and have the conversations, the necessary conversations with your children to let them understand their diagnosis and their disability. And one thing I would say is start simple. Like, you don't want to go into the whole, you have ADHD or you have autism and this are the symptoms and this is why you don't want to make a big old lecture of it. You want to start slowly and start simple. Especially if they ask a question about it, you still want to go simple. You want to use child-friendly language, right? Or age-appropriate language. Like, you might be like, our brains work a little bit differently. Your brain likes to get the information in by you looking at things, as opposed to saying stuff like you you have to always do something, or you don't want to make it negative. You want to make it positive. You want to frame it in a way where you're like, your brain works a little differently, and that's okay. Sometimes it takes more for you to focus, and but realize that when you when you go for a walk and come back in, you realize you can focus better. So we'll just make sure that you go for short walks every day, like whatever the tool is for your kid that you notice helps. Last week's episode, we spoke about the different sensory tools and the different activities that we can use to help improve focus. So make sure that you guys are listening every week. I am definitely still working on building up our library so that you will be able to go to my website at schoollifeready.com to get a lot of these cheat sheets that I have on there for you parents to access. So as I said before, guys, always remember to highlight their strengths. As I speak to them in a child-friendly manner, um, showing them that they are able to do things. Some things might be hard, but they're able to do other things. And I know, like, listen, it doesn't matter. Most kids, they're gonna be like, "That's so hard." That's so hard. And our job is to say, yes, it is hard, but this is how we can make it easier, right? And we break stuff down and we take it one day at a time. We just take it one day at a time, right? Encourage questions. Let your child know it's okay to be curious. It's okay to be confused. It's okay to even be upset. Just as I said before, my patient he was upset that people were thinking he has autism. And it's okay to say, no, you don't have whatever they think they may have, or yes, you do have it, and then just break it down for them and letting them know it's not a bad thing. Having a disability is not a bad thing at all. And always keep that in mind, that if you have a diagnosis or you have a disability, it's not a bad thing. It is what it is. And yes, it may be hard to deal with. However, we as parents, we're working with children, and as educators, we're working with children. And you know what the most beautiful thing about a child is? The child's brain is the most malleable brain. It's very plastic. What do we say? We can't fix broken men, but we can surely train young children, right? So the younger the child, the easier it is. So we don't want to wait for a child to be too, no, can't be too old, but you know what I mean. Like, don't wait till the child is so much older. The younger the child, the bigger the difference. The bigger the difference is, to be able to help that child learn and grow and accept and be able to be independent and functional in society and in their everyday life. So guys, there's no perfect way to have this conversation. There's no perfect way. What matters most is that you let your child know that they are loved and they are accepted. That love and acceptance is the most important thing. I know for a lot of parents, it is hard. It's very hard for a lot of parents. And make sure that you have parents, you have someone that can help you through this. So you can have a trusted teacher, you can have a trusted therapist, or maybe your parents, because I can tell you this, guys. Most children who have autism or ADHD or or a learning disability, I've seen wherein their parents, and mostly moms, they too had a learning disability, or they too had some emotional dysregulation, or they too have had similar situations, similar symptoms, not diagnosed. For a lot of the parents, they weren't diagnosed, but they can now see themselves in their children. So a lot of parents are realizing that, oh, I too struggled with learning, but my parents didn't give me therapy. And so because of that, it's important that we go ahead and educate ourselves as we as we help to help our children, right? So we help ourselves as parents so that we can help our children, right? So with that said, that is it for tonight. To wrap up, we were going to say that most children benefit from knowing about their disability. And we're going to say start small with the conversation. If you do choose to have that conversation with your child, start small. You're not labeling your child, you're educating your child, you're helping your child being able to advocate for themselves. And therefore, we want to help give them the language so that they can continue to do that. So that's it for tonight, you all. It was great having you guys here. For those who tuned in, next week, hopefully, Jen will be back. Thank you, Ms. Kendra, for chiming in and helping with the conversation tonight. I appreciate it. I really appreciate your perspective on the matter. And guys, make sure that you can send me an email about any topics that you want to discuss. Also, make sure you go to the School Life Ready YouTube channel. It's SLR, School Life Ready Insights. And go there and subscribe to the YouTube channel. So that's it for tonight, y'all. Have a great night, and I'll see you all next week. Good night, y'all.